everyone. I am so glad to be with you today. I miss when I love doing my interviews, but I also love just doing these solo episodes where I tell you more about things to do with your anxiety, because managing it is so important. Because remember, we don't get rid of anxiety. It doesn't go away. I know we want it to go away. I want it to go away, but it's not going to go away. So I want to teach you how to manage it. So if you remember, like I'm doing all there's 7 puzzle pieces to this book, this Anxious Kids, Anxious Parents. And we're going to be doing another puzzle piece today. And I just think it's just so important for you to know all this stuff. And we're going to put it all together at the end so that you will know how to use all of these different techniques. So one of the things that I have talked to you about before is that anxiety is harder to manage than some of the other things, some of the other emotions that we feel, because we get real uncomfortable sensations in our bodies when we're anxious. Sometimes people even vomit or get diarrhea, and who doesn't want to avoid that? I don't want to do any of those things. And so when we feel that way, it seems like a really great excuse, like, oh, I feel sick, I better not go to school. Or I feel like I'm going to have to go to the bathroom a lot, so I better not go do my presentation or whatever. And we're going to miss out on a lot of our life if we let those sensations get to that level and stop us from doing the things that we really want to do. So really, managing anxiety is just about resetting that alarm system inside of our body, that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response. We need that response. It keeps us alive, but we need to reset it when the alarm is so loud and going off about things that are not life or death situations. It's not keeping us alive, it's just keeping us away from things that we want to do. And so I want you to be able to feel those uncomfortable sensations. And they usually start out small before they ramp up to vomiting and diarrhea or migraines. I think sometimes people get that. But we start feeling kind of like some uneasiness before that. And so one of the ways that we can start resetting that alarm and resetting our bodies so that we don't get so upset is that when we start feeling just like the twinges of some of those uncomfortable feelings, that we decide to breathe. And I know that sounds crazy because we don't really have complete control over our breathing, but we can start paying attention to it. And you might find that when you get anxious, you kind of hold your breath because you're just like, oh gosh, here it comes. I don't want to feel this way. And there actually is, like, you don't realize you're kind of holding your breath. And so in some of the past episodes of this book, we've been talking about you're going to expect to worry. Of course I feel worried. It's the first day of school. Or of course I'm worried. I'm going to ask someone out on a date that I'm really interested in. Or of course I feel worried. I have to give a speech to the class. Or I have to do a driver's test in front of someone. And all of that, expect it. Of course we're going to feel anxious. And we're going to talk to our anxiety and tell it, it's okay. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for joining me, but I don't need you today. I don't need you in this setting because this is not a life or death situation. And we're going to push ourselves a little bit to go into those uncomfortable things. And then we're going to breathe. So, and we're going to pay attention to our breath, and we're going to breathe in a purposeful way so that it can start calming us down so that we don't throw up, so that we don't have diarrhea, so that we don't get that migraine. We're going to notice it at the beginning and be like, okay, this is time for some breath work. Some people call it breath work. And what I'm teaching here is not necessarily what people consider breath work because I haven't been trained in that. But this is just very simple things that you can do at your desk, even during class. Now, these both require, part of them is about saying words and numbers, but you can say them in your head. You don't have to say them out loud, but I'm going to say them out loud so I can kind of help you figure out how to do these. But when we start feeling those uncomfortable sensations inside, that's going to be our cue that, oh, okay, now is the time that I need to be purposeful about my breathing. You know what? No matter what any of those sensations are that we're having in our body, we can tell ourselves this is a normal response. Nothing's gone wrong. There's nothing wrong with us. It isn't bad. This is just how my body reacts to something that it thinks is life-threatening. So you're going to take in some deep breaths. And I'm going to use my sphere. I have to move back a little bit. Oh, this is what we're going to be saying inside of our minds. Oh, this is what a nervous stomach feels like. That's okay. Oh, that's what happens when I'm starting to get a headache. And that's okay. I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to start relaxing my body. I'm going to start relaxing my jaw. Oh, this is what happens when my body thinks that that school is life or death, but it's not. I'm totally safe when I'm at school. I just need to breathe through it. Now, I will say that sometimes when you're experiencing some physical symptoms, it could be a physical problem. And it is important to go to the pediatrician or the doctor and at least tell them what your symptoms are and see if there might be a physical reason why this is happening. You know, when my daughter was in first grade or second grade, she was throwing up before school every day, and later we realized it was anxiety, but at the time we did not know what the problem was. And I thought, well, maybe she's allergic to something. Maybe she has some sort of gastrointestinal problem that's going on that is creating her needing to vomit every day. Maybe it's, allergies, like something she's eating. And so we did go to the doctor, and we had all of the tests run for what would cause someone to vomit every day. And we realized that there wasn't anything in her physical world that was causing that. And so then I knew that it had to be something. I mean, I didn't call it anxiety then, but it was just like you're getting upset about something, and that's causing you to feel like you need to throw up. And so we just, she would just throw up sometimes on the way to school. Like, we would be driving to school. She was like, oh, I need to throw up. Okay. She'd open the door, throw up. Then we close the door, and she would still go to school because she wasn't sick. She didn't have a fever. This wasn't something that she could, give to other people. And so I just made her push through the uncomfortableness. And very rarely, I mean, maybe a couple of times the school would say she threw up at school, but really it was mostly before she got there. But once she was there, she didn't have that anymore. And I think even when they called a couple times, I don't remember this for sure, but they probably called a couple times to say that she threw up. And I would say, does she have a fever? If she is not sick, she needs to stay at school. And so they would just have her stay at school, and then she would go through the rest of her day. So do definitely rule out if there is any physical symptoms. And in my program, I teach about welcoming breath. And so that's just breathing in and saying, oh, anxiety, you're here. Come on in. It's okay. Because we don't make anxiety an enemy or a monster. It's just like, oh, here you are. I knew you would show up on the first day of school. I knew you would show up when I have to have this difficult conversation. That's normal. That is just the way it is. So we do the welcoming breath, and when they do that, when they're breathing in, they're actually imagining that their breath is going to the areas that feel sick or uncomfortable, and it's healing them and relaxing them and calming those areas. And we just do that until we start feeling better. Breathing is something that you have somewhat control over. Like, you can be intentional about your breath. You can really pay attention to when you're breathing, because most of the time we don't even pay any attention to breathing. And so that helps our child, or helps us, to realize that we do have some control over some of our body sensations and how we're doing our breathing, and that when we're relaxing and making sure that all of our muscles are starting to feel warm and loose, and we're healing ourselves with our breath, then our body can't ramp up and get overly upset and throw up, because we are calming it down and we are talking it down. The book actually teaches 2 techniques that use breath, and they're similar to mine. They're not talking about, like, you're not talking to yourself like, oh, anxiety, I'm so glad you're here, thank you for showing up today. But it does help you to relax and calm. So the first one is just called calming breath. It takes about 30 seconds. This is something that you could do at your desk. Now, you would talk out loud if you're in school or in a meeting or in some kind of session. If you're by yourself, you could talk out loud, and I'm going to talk out loud so I can role model it. But the beginning of calming breath is you actually exhale all the air out of your lungs, and you can feel, like it contracting. And then you're taking a deep breath. And when you blow out, you're just going to say words that are calming to you. So some of mine are, I'm safe. Relax. I'm calm. And you just do that for 30 seconds, so it doesn't take very long. That'll be a few breaths. And then one of the other ones that they do is calming counts. And so it's exactly the same. You're going to exhale all the air out first. And then we're filling up our lungs and our stomach, because we're going to try to fill up our diaphragm. Well, the diaphragm doesn't fill up, but we're trying to fill up our lungs so that the diaphragm has to work too. And we're going to also fill up our stomach area so that the diaphragm has to be pushed up. And when we breathe out, we're going to say, I'm calm, I'm safe, whatever kind of words help you to feel better. But then at the end of each one, you're going to say, you're going to count down, and you're going to start with 10. Relax. 9. And then you're going to just do that all the way down to 1. And again, if you're in the class, this one takes about 90 seconds because you're counting down. But when you're in the class, you're going to just say those things inside your head instead of saying them out loud. So you don't even have to leave the room in order to do this. Or if you're sitting at a stoplight, or you're you're behind the curtain and you're going to go out to do a presentation, or it's your turn is next to give the speech in class, and you can be doing this at your desk while you're waiting for it to be your turn. And parents, teachers, or any kind of caregivers that are listening to this, you can role model this and talk this out loud with anything that's going on with you, so that your child can learn that this is how you calm yourself in situations, and that everyone has to manage their own anxiety. And that, yes, parents have to manage their anxiety, teachers have to manage their anxiety, school counselors and therapists and daycare workers, wherever you are and you're working with kids or yourself, you need to manage your anxiety, and you can do that by breathing and talking through it. So if you're in the car as a parent and you have to wait in some traffic jam and your child is sitting there in their car, now I realize a lot of times they have their headphones on, but if they can hear you, or even if it's somewhere at home or whatever, but you could just say, this wait is really frustrating and I'm getting freaked out that I'm going to be late for our appointment. So I'm going to take some deep breaths, and I'm going to start by getting rid of all the air in my lungs. I'm going to breathe in, and And then I'm going to relax my muscles, and I'm going to say relax. And I'm just going to do this until I can start to feel my body calming down and relaxing. And then I'll be ready to face whatever happens after I'm waiting in this long traffic jam and I get to my appointment. So this also helps your brain to stay online so that it can process problem solving and thinking and planning. When we get in a panic, that part of our brain goes to sleep. And then we can't very well plan or problem solve or learn anything because our brain is offline. So we want to teach our kids that their brain needs to stay online for the problem solving, planning part of our lives. Our brain needs to stay online because we can't help our child regulate, or we can't help students in the class regulate. We can't help kids in the daycare regulate if we're not regulated ourselves. We have to stay regulated so that we can help others. And then it also helps us to role model to others. And if you're a teenager needing to hear this, you can do this regulating and managing your anxiety in the classroom, in the car going to school, on the bus going to school. Wherever it is that you need this time, you can totally do it. Because it's all within you to be able to control that. So practice this and please let me know how it's going for you. Now, we don't just use breathing by itself without the other pieces that we've been talking about, but this is a great addition to all the things that we've already talked about. So I'll talk to you soon.